This week on The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles and Friends, Kevin presents part one of a two-part series on Apartment Investing 101. So lean in and listen up for another informative episode of The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles and Friends. Support for this program comes from the Digital Broadcasting Network, presenting podcasts and web series from everyday people who have an extraordinary passion to make the world a better place.
My name is Kevin Riles. I am just a little bit about who I am. I am a native of Houston. I grew up here in Houston, grew up on the southwest side. That other city like Missouri City. Grew up in Missouri City, offices in Sugar Land. Went to Woolridge High School, and then I went away to college in Atlanta and came back here to what I thought temporarily working for Exxon, and what I thought to be just a temporary going back to Atlanta. Then I fell in love. Hold on, kids. Yeah. Right. So the way I got into real estate is I'm an engineer, computer science, computer engineering major, working for Exxon Mobil, looking for my first house. Was looking for a traditional 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and 322. In Texas, I always say we have two rights in Texas: trucks and 322s. And so I had a friend of mine introduce me to another engineer who's an engineer by day, real estate agent by night. He said, "Why are you buying a 322? Why don't you buy a duplex?" And I said, "I don't know. Why would I buy a duplex?" He said, "You can live in one side and rent out the other." And so I bought a duplex, 2801 Wheeler, on the corner of Wheeler and Delano, one block away from Texas Southern's HPE building. And that was my foray into real estate investing. So I thought that I would have my real estate. I said, well, Craig, the guy that sold me that particular property, has his real estate license, so I'm gonna get my real estate license, and I'm gonna do it on the side as well. Well, you never know how life takes you. Engineer turned real estate agent, it became a career for me. So for the last 20 years, I've been a full-time real estate broker. Started off on the residential side, and over the last 10 years, have moved over to the commercial side. So my business, just like the capability statement says, is a small boutique business. I was known as the foreclosure guy. My claim to fame in Houston real estate, at least amongst most older realtors, is I used to have the contract to list all the HUD foreclosures in Houston. So I used to list about 100 properties a month with that contract. So you see those numbers at 3,500 or whatever is on there. That's where those numbers came from. During the height of the foreclosure crisis, I listed foreclosures. And so how I got into commercial is a lot of those guys that bought my foreclosures would then come back to me and say, now I've gotten to my Fannie Mae bucket is filled up, my 20 properties. I don't know if y'all know what Fannie Mae buckets or not. Or I've gotten to my 10, I want to start buying multifamily, small multifamily. So I started brokering small multifamily. So my specialty is small multifamily, as defined by plus or minus 100 units. Out of the 6 apartment complexes that I sold last year, the average unit count was about 35 units. All right, so the 72, so the 24, so right at 100. So, and the reason I do that is a couple of reasons. One, from a business standpoint, Grubb & Ellis, Cushwake, HFF, all the big guys, they sell the 2 and 3 and 400. And I've sold larger unit counts before. Trust me, I would do them. So, if you want to buy a larger unit count, let me know. But what I have found is they think the small stuff is kind of like beneath them, and I can eat real well as a broker. And one of the things we learned in B school is chaos theory, and chaos theory says that when there's chaos in the market, if you can provide order to that market, you can take advantage of that market. So I'm trying to provide order to the small multifamily market here in Houston. So with that being said, I market to about 3,500 multifamily homeowners or property owners per month. And that's from duplexes all the way up to about 125 units. I send them something monthly. I'm making calls and things of that nature. So I'm pretty active in that small multifamily market. The other reason I do that is I typically get to work with folks like yourselves. I don't mind working with institutional investors, but I grew up working with everyday folks that are just trying to build their wealth over time. And so I just feel comfortable in that market, providing them with big level expertise, even though they're buying smaller properties. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about my company. My company is huge. It's me. It is my wife works with. She just came aboard last year to work with me full time. I have my team partner Eric Odom in the back there. I've known Eric since 6th grade, and he is my buyer's agent and kind of helps me generally as well. And then on occasion, I'll have a virtual assistant help me kind of with some of my marketing stuff. Speaking of which, before I get into the education tonight, I send out, and that's one of the things that I guess got me here. I send out every Monday, I call it Multifamily Mondays. I send out a list of every multifamily or apartment complex on the market in Houston, whether it be my listing or not. Sometimes when I have my, when I have my listings, you'll see them at the top, and I do that as a service for people that don't have access to loop that, or don't know how to coagulate all of the different. So if you want to be on that list, it's real fancy now. Constant Contact allows you to text and be added to the list. So that's that little note at the bottom on the front page there. You just have to text. It'll text you back for your email address, and you're added. And if you like the information, great. If not, you can unsubscribe. I also do a weekly podcast called The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. I'm on my 60th episode of The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. And basically, I do this on the podcast. I do it video, and I do it on Apple, iTunes, and Google Play. So if you search my name, if you're a podcast listener, Kevin Riles on iTunes or Google Play, The Real Estate of Life. And so I call it Real Estate of Life because I talk mostly about real estate, but I'm kind of a motivational guy, so a little bit about life as well. So this week, I'm talking to a client of mine who I've helped buy some funeral homes. He's in the funeral home business. We're going to talk about real estate and debt. I'm a nerd. I like that type of stuff. So with that being said, Apartment 101. Apartment 101. How to invest in apartments. I've given this talk many times. I give it over the phone a lot of times when people call, just so I can get a sense of the room. How many of you own investment property right now, just in general? All right. How many of you own small multifamily already? All right. How many of you own big multifamily? All right. Doesn't want to leave the big folks out there. Might have felt some kind of way. My stuff is big. Yours is not. All right. So at the outset, most of you, it seems like the majority of the room have at least one investment property. What I'm going to tell you is something that most commercial brokers may not tell you. Owning an apartment complex is not that difficult. It's the same thing as buying a single family house. All right? So we just get that out the way up at the front. The same analysis that you do to look at a single family investment, it's the same analysis you will do to look at an apartment complex, to evaluate an apartment complex. Do you need to know more terms? Yes. But due diligence, does it make money? Is everything working? Inspecting it, doing unit walks, it's the same thing you would do, you just have more than one unit, all right? Thank you very much, and I'm going to all right. So with that being said, you don't have to think of this as, oh my God, it has 4 units, or it has 8 units, or it has 70 units. It is the same process whether you're buying 10 units or you're buying 100 units, right? So there are a couple things that I want to go over, and I put some terms up on the board, but first and foremost, I kind of want to tell you kind of about the Houston market, and that'll allow me to kind of go over some of these terms. First and foremost, we live in a market that is HOT hot right now. Houston's multifamily market is hot. It is making deals harder to find. But my single family investors also tell me that is the same case. Right now it's hard to find a deal because everybody is HGTV and they're Property Brothers, which I love Property Brothers, watch it a little bit, but it makes the deals a little difficult to find. Everybody and their mom thinks they're a flipper. So with that being said, the good news is that we're in a strong market. The not so good news is that that has caused pricing to go up. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to, so as we go over Apartment 101, what I'm basically going to do is go over these terms. And I think by going over those terms, that will allow me to kind of introduce you to different concepts as far as apartment. One of the things that you will hear in apartment investing, so term number 1, if I was teaching, is CAP, C-A-P, CAP. Anybody know what CAP stands for? Cap rate. What does CAP actually stand for? Capitalization. All right. Y'all win nothing. So capitalization rate. What does that mean? What does capitalization rate mean? So capitalization rate means it is a measure of value at any given set point. And that's very, very important. at a set point at a certain time, at the end of the year, or at a quarter, or whatever the case may be, is a measure of value. So I put the formula for value up there. NOI, which is net operating income, divided by cap rate equals the value. So why am I starting off talking about cap? As you look at multifamily apartments, investing in apartments, how do I measure the return on an apartment quickly to be able to compare one property to another? How do I measure that? I measure that by measuring the cap rate. And the cap rate measures how much net operating income is coming in. So which takes me to the second. I'm going to flip back and forth between the two. Net operating income is literally what it means. It's the net operating income. I know, it's real smart, right? So what do I mean by that? You have your gross income, how much rent you're getting, subtracted all your expenses, and then you net out what you make at the end, right? Because at the end of the day, as an apartment investor or any investor, that net operating income is really what you're looking for. How much money am I going to make? Now, cap rate does not take into effect how much debt you have on the property, right? It just says, if I bought this property cash, what would essentially be my quick return, right? And so, as I talk about caps in Houston right now, because of the type of properties I specialize in, which are older properties, I'll get to different classes in a second, cap rates for older properties or C-class properties, which I'll explain here in a second, are pushing down. So if cap rates are down, values are up. It's inverse. Right? I know people I didn't come from a math class, but all right, if the cap rates are down, if you're seeing low cap rates, that means the values of the properties are up, right? And the reason you see that is because the fact that there's such a high demand for yield right now. Everybody's chasing a better yield than the stock market is giving them, right? So where can I place my money? And that's basic supply and demand that we've all taken at some point. The lower the supply, the higher demand, the higher the price. And so at the end of the day, cap rate is a measure, right? A measure. So in apartment investing 101, when you're looking at a property, you're looking at the net operating income. And you want to know, what does that mean if I'm looking at two different properties as far as net operating income? If those properties don't have the same number of units, they're not in the same part of town, they're not in the same condition, how can I compare those two properties from an income standpoint? And so what cap rate does is give you a quick measure to say, hey, if I bought this property at a 7 cap, it would be this value. If I bought this other property at a 7 cap, it would be this value. Which one is higher, which one is lower, right? So it's a quick measure. It is not the ultimate measure nor the only measure, but it's a quick measure. If you call my office and ask me about a multifamily property that I'm listing, 9 times out of 10, a commercial broker is going to say, well, it's listed at $2.4 million and the cap rate, we listed it at a 6.5 cap. That's why I'm going over cap very quickly, because as you start shopping for this, the brokers or people that are investors that own will say, oh, I think I want 7 cap for it. And so they won't even tell you the price. They just might tell you the cap rate. Well, in order for you to get a price, I need to operate. So can you send me the financials so I can calculate to see if that's correct, right? And so if you look at, and I'm gonna jump around a little bit, these are 2 actual properties that are on the market. I put their financials in my little packet here. If you take the Scott Gray Real Estate, Scott and I have done some deals together. He has a property inside Duluth. This is a 20-unit apartment complex here. You look down at the bottom, it says net operating income, $200,414. $200,414. All right. So if inside Duluth, I didn't put pictures in here, but this place is decked out. I mean, travertine on top of travertine, gold, different from the ceiling. I mean, it's really laid out. So cap rates for A-class properties right now, which I would consider an A-class property, is around 5%, right? So 5%. So what you would do, if you call me and I was listing this property and say, hey, we want to sell, our whisper rate is 5% cap, you would divide 200,000 by 5%, and that gives you $4 million, right? So if you notice, on here, he doesn't even, it's so good right now in multifamily brokering, we don't have to give you a price anymore, right? We just say determined by market. You tell us what you want to pay, and we may call you that, right? And so these two properties right here that I have on here on the financials, they don't have prices on them. It's not like single family where I want $200,000 for this property. I want, right now, it's so much demand that the brokers are saying, here are the financials, you tell me. And then we'll go back to the owner and say, hey, they offer a 4.5 cap, or they offer the 5.5 cap, right? We probably in the back of our minds know what we want, but that's how much the demand is. So just to give you an example, if you want to know, at 5 cap, assuming these numbers are correct, which we'll go over here in a second, this is a $4 million property. At 5.5 cap, this is a $3.6 million property. And at a 6 cap, this is a $3.3 million property. So you can see those changes in caps make huge differences, right? And because of the demand for product, stuff that used to sell for, say, a 6 cap, which is a low cap, by the way, right? They're pushing 4.75 caps, which beyond the scope of Department 101, but it becomes hard to make money as a normal investor when the cap gets below 6, in my opinion, unless you're paying cash, right? Unless you're paying cash. So think of cap as how much return I'm going to get. The lower that goes, right, the higher the price the seller gets, but the lower your return is. So right now, to be a seller is an awesome thing. To be a buyer, maybe not so much, depending on where you get the deal from. All right, any questions about that? Y'all can feel free, this is free flow.
Okay, so the lower the cap rate,
The higher the price.
the higher the price, not so great for investors.
Not so, so
I know,
depends on the
everything's
reason,
wrong.
I don't want to be absolute.
Yeah.
Depends on the reason you're investing. Some people doing 1031 exchange, I need to apply this money. I'm going to play the appreciation game and not the cash flow game. I have a 4th unit under contract right now inside the loop in the medical center. The reason they're buying that property is because Uncle Sam is whooping their butt, and they don't care as much about the cash flow, so they paid a little bit of a premium for a property because they actually kind of wanted to lose money. Not lose money,
Right.
They're going to pay the appreciation game. So I don't want to be absolute, but yeah, typically the lower the cap, investors we want double-digit caps. That's what we like. Yes, sir.
I guess, is there a limit to how high a cap rate should go before that's a red flag?
Oh, good question. So if you see a 14 cap out there, you're like, what? 14 cap? Oh my God, yes, please. Can I? In this market, that just being 9.5, I'm wondering what's going on, like if it's real numbers. Which again, I'll get to actuals versus in the games that people play as far as that's concerned. But no, regardless of the cap, you have to do your due diligence and see if the numbers are real, because owners and brokers will make up numbers.
I gotta be the one to bring it all the way back.
Okay.
So, where's the cap rate coming from? Like, what's calculated? I see function of price, but how?
So that's a good question. So people always say, well, where do you get the cap? Well, how do you know what's a good cap, what's a bad cap? Is what you're basically asking. Knowledge of the market, using a broker that knows the market, reading reports. You see the report, which I'm going to go through here in a second, that these are readily available on the internet. A lot of the larger companies produce them. JLL produced this. By the way, if anybody knows JLL, I did put their logo in here. I just put mine and said compliments of. I don't want people to think I'm plagiarizing. And just thought I'd throw it out there. But so there are cap rate surveys that are published quarterly in all major markets that'll tell you what the average caps are. But basically, that's a function of knowing the market. There's no National Association of Cap Rates that you can call and say, what's the cap rate in Houston right now?
Gotcha.
It's just kind of what deals are trading for.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as what you're saying about the cap rate, basically if you had $1 million property, you paid $1 million for it, and you're making $100,000 net operating
10%
income, you have a
cap
10% cap.
Yes, sir.
So,
10 cap all day. And right now, you would have people banging on your door to buy it.
Luke guy's got a car wash advertised for 24.5 right now.
24.5 cap. If
Yeah.
I see that, then I think they either
Yeah.
calculated the cap wrong. Because, I mean, and this is not an indictment, this stuff I've come to familiar over the last 10 years. Not everybody knows what cap rate is. And so that might be a cash on cash that they're calling, like people don't really know. Some brokers don't know what it is. Yeah. And then how can you, car wash? I do 60% multifamily, 40% other, and my other kind of is a hodgepodge of stuff. Cash business. So show me the quarters, show me that 24%. All right, so cap rate, right? We got a little sense of, again, this class could be, hours and days long. So cap rate. Net operating income, all right? we're not gonna go over this because this is really would be a math class, but IRR, you'll hear some of us in the business. Just got my CCIM, which is Certified Commercial Investment Member, which is kind of like the CPA of commercial real estate. Got it last year, and one of the things that they banged us on are not just looking at cap rate as a measure of performance. So internal rate of return, or sometimes called the hurdle rate, is what does my dollar make once it's actually inside the investment, right? Cap rate tells me if I bought it cash and I made the money, then this is what my likely return is. Internal rate of return says once my dollar is churning, I bought it and I'm looking, what is my return when my dollar is circulating within the investment? Why is that important? Is because internal rate of return is a measure that is not static. It is ongoing. Cap rate is how much did it make in the last 12 months. And this is the cap rate as of today. This is the cap rate. Internal rate of return can be calculated pretty much at any time. It is telling me how my dollar is doing inside the investment. Again, beyond the scope of this, but you might hear it every once in a while, internal rate of return or hurdle rate. I'm gonna skip around. So I'm gonna go to pro forma versus actuals. Pro forma versus actuals. So if you look on the very last page in the back, this is another Inside the Loop deal that's on the market, just came to the market actually today. 28 units, stabilized. I love our vocabulary, so just haven't done this for a while. Stabilized NOI, 318,398 on an annual basis. Stabilized meaning when it's stabilized. So my first question is, wait, is it stabilized now? Or are you selling me on when I get it stabilized, it'll be 318? So like little stuff like that means stuff, right? So that might not be the net operating income now. That might be once you put your magic dust on it and you're the greatest owner ever, you implement all this stuff, and it's born on a Tuesday, left-handed, boom, now it's stabilized and you can get that. So every owner wants to sell at its most optimum net operating income. So I printed this out because I like, this is Tom Wilkinson's Houston Income Properties. They kind of do their performance like this. I just like to play with the vocabulary because for you guys, you may look at this, you might just look at the NOI and say, okay, that's the NOI, and I'm good. But it gives you a good sense of kind of how we present properties. So with that being said, if you look down at the expenses, you'll see that he has December 17th through November 18th expenses. And what we call that is a T12, trailing 12, right? What's happened in the last 12 months. And so long story short, what will happen is sometimes I won't sell a property at the end of the year. I'll sell it in March. So what happened from this March to the previous 12 March, so I can get a full year of what really happens. Because and what some brokers will do and some owners will do, they had a really good January, a really good February, a really good March. Okay, I want to put it on the market. I want you to annualize everything that happened in those first 3 months and make that how the property performed to show those numbers. You don't want to show when you have 50% occupancy in October, November, and December. So those are little tricks that you'll see. But long story short, pro forma is if everything is working like it's supposed to be, this is how much money you're making. That's what pro forma is, right? It is optimum conditions. Actuals should be actuals. In other words, what actually happened. So you will typically see on one side, pro forma, if everything is working like it's supposed to be, if you implement this, or if you manage it better, or if we had a capital expenditure last year, we had to replace all the air conditionings, but that's not going to happen anymore. So this year, so pro forma is optimal conditions, actuals are what actually happened. Then there's a thing, sometimes I'll see, and I've done this too when I list the property, modified actuals. Modified actuals means I have almost all the information except for a couple of data points, so I'm going to estimate on those data points, right? Modified actuals, I just sold 16 units that closed last week in Galveston, and they didn't have a property manager. Most people that buy a property in Galveston are going to have a property manager. So I took their actuals and I added a property management fee. So I called them modified actuals because most people are going to have a property management fee, and I would rather be a conservative broker and tell you most likely you're going to want a property manager because it's in Galveston and you're buying from Houston. But if you don't, just take that fee out, right? So, and sometimes as brokers, talking about pro forma versus actuals, when I initially sold that property, the owner, 84-year-old guy, last property he's selling, literally sent me a box of receipts. Those were my financials. And so I had to, at least he had them in folders by month, so I had to have my virtual assistant, I scanned it all in, sent it to her, and she calculated the expenses one by one by one, and I had to come up with the expenses. So with that being said, pro forma, you never really want to make decisions solely off pro forma. You can look at pro forma and say, yeah, hey, if I'm owning, if I own it, I think this is how I would run it, so I can kind of see what the potential are. At the end of the day, you really want actuals as much as you possibly can. But the market is so tight right now, some owners are like, that's the pro forma. I might give you some actuals, or I'll annualizing my actuals is taking my best month and saying that's how it is all the time. So again, little things that you have to do. So any questions about pro forma versus actual? Keep me good on time. I'm a preacher's kid, so I'll keep talking.
You get to about 8 o'clock, and then 8 o'clock, you may want to go into an open discussion.
Okay.
They're going to run us out here right after 8:30.
No, that's fine. I'm not. If I go to 8 o'clock, then they're gonna be mad at me. 'Cause,
Yeah, okay.
I should have finished in the next 15 minutes or so.
Kevin, you mentioned about the property manager.
Yeah.
You said only in Galveston. Okay, so
No. I was saying with that particular property, the odds are most people would have a property manager because if they buy it from Houston, they're not going to be running to Galveston. Well, you guys live out here, but most people who would not be running to Galveston, they would want a property manager.
so you're suggesting that if you're used to not to get a
No. I suggest that's based on your own, as my grandma said, that's how the spirit leads you and what you want to deal with, phone calls and all the other stuff that comes with it. I would rather manage the property manager than manage the property. I'm at that stage. As far as my, I have no desire to manage that property. So, yeah. But that's 5 to 6 to 7% of rents that I've been giving up to do that. So, I have one client that that sold that. They were trying to manage it from Sugar Land, and they just tapped out. That's why they sold it. As a matter of fact, they just couldn't. And I said, well, just hire a property manager. Okay, no, we they were engineers and just had to be there, so they'd rather sell it. So, and then they also started investing in triple net investments as well, or commercial like retail centers. Pro forma versus actuals. Any questions? All right.
So pro forma is just basically that's your budget.
Yeah, you can look at it like that.
Budget so much for 1 year, then this is what you're.
Pro forma is optimal conditions. If I'm at 75% occupancy, I'm gonna do pro forma at 90%, right? But right now it's at 75%. But I'm telling you, this pro forma, these are my assumptions when I do my pro forma. Usually you'll see notes that says, I'm assuming this, I'm assuming that. If I know there's some capital expenditure that needs to happen, then I'm assuming, I'm putting those in my pro forma.
Is the term only used for income?
No, it's income and expenses. Yeah. Your pro forma profit and loss statement, basically. Hey, thanks for listening as always. Do you have questions about any of the topics I'm talking about? If you have questions, let me know. Email me at kevin@kevinriles.com. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com. I'm going to do a podcast just on the questions that you guys are sending to me. So feel free to send them to me. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com.